Welcome in lacrosse fans to the Utah Lacrosse Report podcast. I'm your host, Tim Haslam. This week we're joined by two Utah fan favorites and Archer standouts, Beau Pederson and Brett Dobson. Beau was a true Utah success story growing up in Park City, developing through the early days of the state's lacrosse scene, and going on to play at Princeton in Michigan before being drafted by Utah in the PLL. Brett's path looks different, but it is just as compelling, coming up through the Canadian lacrosse system, helping launch a Division I program at St. Bonaventure, and becoming one of the premier goalies in both the PLL and NLL. We talk about their journeys playing at the highest levels of college and pro lacrosse, what it means to represent Utah, and why this market continues to grow into one of the strongest lacrosse communities in the country. From hometown goals and draft night emotions to box first field lacrosse and post-game food debates, this episode has a little bit of everything. If you're an Archers fan or just love hearing how elite players got where they are, this one's for you. Hope you enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by Vessel Kitchen. From practice to game day, fuel matters. At Vessel Kitchen, everything's made from scratch with clean, high-quality ingredients so you can recover faster and play harder. Eat well, do well. Welcome to the show, Beau. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back in the great state of Utah. So
yeah. We're looking forward to this weekend. Obviously, with the PLL in town, you're the hometown hero, so to speak. We're excited to watch you play this weekend, and it should be a good one. First question though, I ask every guest: when did you start playing lacrosse?
Yeah, I've told the story a few times, but I started probably when I was, I want to say 3 or 4 years old, just like picking up a stick. My dad is friends with this guy, Dave Moore, who kind of started the Park City lacrosse program. And Dave didn't have much experience with lacrosse, and my dad didn't either, but my dad had coaching experience. He coached under, Beau Schembechler at Michigan for a couple of years. So he just asked my dad to come out and just, help coach just because he kind of knows how to run a practice a little bit. And that he just brought me along. So since then I've had a stick in my hands and just, fell in love with it. And we started playing probably organized lacrosse when we had the shoe mash lacrosse. I don't know if you know what that is, the 6 foot by 1 net. We started playing that probably when I was 6 or 7 and never looked back. But yeah, that was kind of the intro to lacrosse for me.
This is the second time that Chumash has come up on the Utah Lacrosse Report podcast. John Tilley was talking about it when I interviewed him earlier. It's a great way to introduce people to the game. Sort of a precursor to, kind of 3-by. It's
exactly.
Those little goals, kind of loose rules, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
no helmets. No sticks obviously have sticks, no gloves, that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
definitely cool. When did you decide or when did you fall in love with the game and then decide, hey, I want to play this in college?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of fell in love with it, right. I mean, honestly, as long as I can remember, it was kind of my passion. Just something I love to do, and obviously love to compete. I played hockey and football in high school as well. I just love, the team aspect. And then, yeah, I mean, I think it's always been, my passion. And in terms of, deciding to play lacrosse and in college over other sports, I came up during the time when, kids were getting recruited in 8th, 9th grade. I committed to Princeton halfway through my sophomore year of high school. And I want to say I was like one of the later commits, in the club circuit, which was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just always been a passion. I love, the creativity in the sport, the physicality, and then obviously always been a team sport guy. I love, being a part of a team. So yeah, just always been some, as long as I can remember, it's been what I love to do.
And you mentioned, you went and played college lacrosse at Princeton. You graduated from Princeton and then played a grad year at Michigan.
Yeah.
What's the differences between Big Ten lacrosse and Ivy League lacrosse? Obviously, both great conferences. Always putting teams into the Final Four. Winning championships. What in your mind is kind of the big difference between those two leagues?
I don't know. Just off the top of my head, you already hit on it, but it's just those two in the ACC are probably the 3 most, top to bottom competitive leagues. I mean, you look at the Big Ten this year, they had 4 regulars, like 4 co-champions, which really kind of speaks to like the competition in that conference. But off the top of my head, it's not really too much different. It's high level lacrosse on both sides, like you said, like Maryland. All those Big Ten teams have been making Final Four runs. Ivy League teams, obviously. I think the one difference maybe is just the time in which the Ivy League has been playing lacrosse. And other than the Michigan Ohio State rivalry, it seems like just some of those rivalries run deep, a little deeper in the Ivy League, just because they've played 80 plus times all those teams over the years. But in terms of like skill and talent and the way the game is played, it's very similar. You're playing against the top programs every week, so yeah, I'd say it's pretty similar, the two leagues.
Yeah, and to play in both is pretty spectacular. And as you're winding down those careers, you're looking at what's next. When did the PLL become an option, and when did you say, hey, I want to throw my hat in the ring?
Yeah, I mean, coming from Utah, like I knew pro lacrosse, like I love watching it, but that was so, in the back of my mind as even a possibility for me. My goal was always, just to play college lacrosse. That was, I remember watching those Final Fours, like the Cornell Syracuse in 2009. Like I remember watching all those great teams and great college lacrosse. So that was always my goal. And then once I got there, just like enjoying it. And it wasn't probably until my senior year at Princeton, where it kind of became, a little bit of reality for me that I, had the potential to, get picked and play in the league. But yeah, it really wasn't until, the last year and a half of my college experience where the PL, was on my radar as something that, I always wanted to do it, but it was something that, was becoming a possibility for me. Um, but yeah, so from then it was just enjoying the college experience and maximizing that, and then whatever happens after that happens. That's always been kind of my focus. Just deal with the present, do the best you can now, and see what happens later. So I honestly didn't really think about it, and then starting my year at Michigan when they started coming out with like pre-drafts and mock drafts, and my name started to come up, that's really when it clicked. It's like, oh, this is gonna happen. This is a real possibility for me.
And then you get selected by the Archers. What was the feeling going through your head at that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously just to get drafted at all is, any sport. I think any kid who plays any sport, that's their dream is among, winning a national championship, like being an All-American, and then like hearing your name called on draft night. I think across sports is kind of what you dream of when you're a little kid. So that part was surreal. And then on top of it being the first year, the PL had home states or home cities, and be selected by Utah as one of, a few guys who've got come out of Utah. Obviously it's becoming more and more now, but when I came out, there were only a few guys ahead of me that, went and played college lacrosse, and even fewer that played pro. So to be selected by Utah was just, unbelievable. And then full circle moment, Bates was actually the coach who recruited me to Princeton. So he had my phone number from 10 years prior when I committed, or 8 years prior. So it was a full circle moment, to be coming home, playing for the coach that I committed to originally. But yeah, it was just super, surreal. And obviously I'm super grateful for the opportunity to represent Utah, wear Utah on my chest. And honestly, it probably took, weeks for me to really for it to settle in and kind of understand, how special that moment really was.
And then I believe last year you get your first goal, or was it 2 years ago?
It
You got
was
your
2 years. Yeah, rookie year at home. Yeah.
rookie year at home. What was that moment like?
Again, it was one of those things where, you're scoring and you're that game, we were playing Denver's for the Western Conference Championship, how it ended up. So first of all, just going to that game at home, crowd was unbelievable. So in the moment, it wasn't like, how special this moment is. It's like I'm just doing whatever I can to, help our team win. And then I remember after the goal, there was a media timeout, which was like the perfect timing, and the crowd was going nuts. So I had a little bit of time to take it in, and it was, that moment, obviously another just super special moment. Have, all my, high school friends, guys I grew up with were at the game, family. It was awesome. So yeah, couldn't have asked for a better first goal. And then yeah, the media timeout after just kind of allowed you to take it in a little bit in that moment, which was awesome.
A couple more questions for you, Beau. Appreciate your
Yeah, of
time today.
course.
Number 89. Why number 89?
Yeah, my dad. So I wore that. I wore 23 in high school, wore 23 at Princeton. And when I was transferred to Michigan for my fifth year, Jimmy Pisani was wearing 23 at Michigan. So I was, looking through what numbers they had. 89 wasn't a number that they had, but I asked for that number because my dad wore that number at Michigan playing football. So a little like father like son action. So I asked if they could make that uniform for me, if that was something that they would be willing to do, and they made it happen, which was super special, to be able to wear that number. And then now actually Michigan season just wrapped up. My brother followed a similar path to me, and he was at Princeton for 4 years, and then also just completed his fifth year at Michigan. And he actually wore the number 78 at Michigan, which was my grandfather's football number. So we hit the lineage, which is really, it was really cool to be able to wear that number for myself, and then watching my brother this year wear my grandpa's number was equally as awesome. So
And you talk about your brother also playing Division I lacrosse at Princeton in Michigan, but also, Beau, your sister
yeah,
is not to be left in the
no,
dark. She's
exactly,
also
no,
a great player in her own right. One of the first families, I think, the first family from Utah to have a girl and a boy go and play in Division I lacrosse.
yeah. I mean, definitely crazy. Hats off to my parents. Not only on the club circuit, but they spent a lot of time in the East Coast over the last, 7 years or so, pinballing between, Princeton, Michigan, and UVA, where my sister was. So, yeah, they're probably relieved everyone's graduated. They get a little bit more downtime in the spring. Um, but no, it was really cool, and it's a testament to my parents, and then also us three. We're all super competitive and push each other to be better, but also each other's biggest fans and supporters. So I think it honestly made it easier for all of us to have each other with a like minded goal to push each other and then also be there for each other. So yeah.
Any sibling rivalry stories from growing up?
I mean, of course, you got, and I grew up playing, attack slash midfield, and my brother's a long pole. So, yeah, we'd go at it. My senior year of high school, he was a sophomore. It was one on ones in practice all the time, calling each other out, going at it. But it was great. And then, my sister would come out and she'd hold her own. Obviously, we couldn't check, but shooting competitions, all that. Yeah, it was always competition, which is, yeah, made it better, made it more fun. But yeah, definitely a little rivalry. Who's scoring the most, who's hitting the most corners, whatever it might be, whatever the competition was that day.
I love it. Lacrosse runs deep, in the community and definitely in families. So it's always fun to hear those stories. Couple more questions. When have you talked to or had a chance to connect with Ryan Steins? Yeah, your new teammate.
I have not. I wanted to let him. I was wishing them the best, in their tournament. I kind of wanted, I remember, college, how special, the group of guys you're with, and how great it is to be a part of a team. So, I didn't want to take focus off, any of those guys. Their focus on the season, just because, you enjoy it while you can, because you only get 4 or 5 years of college. So yeah, enjoy while you can. But unfortunately, they lost. But I'm, happy to have Steins joining us this week. He's a great player. So yeah, I'll get to meet him tonight. Officially for the first time. But yeah, super excited to have him on board. But yeah,
We as Utahns excited, obviously watching him play in college here locally, and then obviously to join the Archers, super excited. Just another connection to the
yeah,
Archers for the
exactly.
for Utahns. So we're really
Yeah,
excited about that. Okay, last question. After the game on well, you play Friday and Saturday, but
yeah.
after games, post game meals, where are you headed? What's your go-to spot?
It kind of depends where I am. I'm always a big fan. Unfortunately, like my stomach after games is always a little bit on edge. So I don't handle food that well after games, but couple times last year and the year before, we've had, just some pepperoni pizza in the locker room right after the game. It goes down a little. I know it's not the healthiest option, but I like to have a slice of pizza, or at Princeton, we get these, chicken parm sandwiches from a place called D'Angelo's, which always hit the spot. So those are the two go to after the game. Not the healthiest, might not recommend it, but what I handle the best after.
I told Brent Nixon to get the number 89 on the Vessel Kitchen menu.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
know if he did or
exactly.
not, but I think that
Yeah.
that's the next play for you.
I mean, Vessel. We had a Vessel after a game last year, and that definitely hits the spot too. I'm a big fan of the chicken and greens bowl from there. So, get that with a little extra Fresno aioli is also not a bad. That's not a bad third option for me post game.
There you go. It's the number 89. We'll trademark it now. Thanks again for joining me. Archers in action on Friday, 6 p.m. against the Redwoods, and then also on Saturday against the Outlaws, opening the season against the rival, 5 p.m. Should be a good one. We'll look forward to it, Beau, and thanks for spending some time, and good luck this season.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and hopefully we'll see you this weekend.
Welcome to the show, Brett. How are you?
I'm doing good, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We're excited to have you on the podcast. One of the few professional players that I've had on the podcast, actually. I've had Hartzell and Will and Adam, obviously, because they live here. But thanks for joining me today. First question I ask every guest, though, when did you start playing lacrosse?
I started playing lacrosse when I was 4 years old. Both my parents were phys ed teachers, and they wanted me to play as many sports as possible growing up. And a guy by the name of Gavin Prout was a former student of my dad's. He's an older lacrosse player. He played some NL, he played some pro field a bit. Ended up giving my dad my first stick, and the rest has kind of been history. And I think it's worked out pretty well since I got that first stick.
For sure. Obviously, playing in two professional leagues, something that's kind of unique to our sport, for sure. Ended up at St. Bonaventure playing for the Bonnies. Talk about that experience. It was a newer school, or even brand new when you got recruited there. Talk about though how you got to that college level.
Yeah, so obviously I was really lucky growing up being in Oshawa. I played for the Whippy Warriors, minor association for lacrosse, and Dyson Williams was a teammate of mine who's honestly has been my teammate pretty much for my entire life. So I'm sure he's probably sick of me by now, but I'm not leaving his side anytime soon. And his dad was our coach, and I was really lucky to get exposed to pro lacrosse at such a young age by being able to go in the field and be ball boys and go in behind the scenes and do all that kind of fun stuff as a kid. And if anyone knows me, they know I'm a pretty big lax rat. So I was in heaven doing that stuff. I was lucky enough to be able to do that and, be half decent at it. I actually started off playing as a player. I got decent minutes, not terrible, but, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and decided to make the switch to play goalie. And I felt like that might have been the second best decision I made in my life. First one was obviously picking up a lacrosse stick, but I feel like that's been kind of my calling. And, when I got to high school, I was actually really lucky. My parents gave me the opportunity to go to Brody Merrill's Hill Academy in Canada. That to me was where I really learned to love lacrosse the right way. I felt like I had a lot of really good coaches there, a lot of guys that, hey, you know what, you're going to go through some ups and downs in this sport, but you're going to learn how to manage it and how to handle it. And I think that school set me up for where I am today. I was exposed to a lot of guys playing pro lacrosse, and when you're watching them and following them on the weekends when they're playing, you envision that being yourself, whether it be in the NL or the PLL. And then, that's one of the steps. This next steps to be able to go to a university in the States to get an education. And that was a little bit of a tougher part for me. I didn't really get recruited. I ended up getting my one offer from St. Bonaventure University. I really wanted to go to Jacksonville University because my sister was committed there. And it's a little far away from home. And knowing what I know now after living in Atlanta for 4 years, going down south, living a little bit nicer on the weather-wise, but I ended up going to St. Bonaventure after meeting with Coach Mearns. He was originally at Canisius. I visited there, loved it. My parents wanted me to be a phys ed teacher just like them, so I was all about it. And he ended up not texting me back, and I found out later on why he didn't text me back is because he was in the midst of taking a new job. He didn't really have any money left at Canisius, so when he got to St. Bonaventure, I was his first phone call, and obviously we hit it off again. And my relationship with Mearns, he's been obviously very unique and one of the best guys to have in your corner in the lacrosse world. He's very well connected. He's a good guy to have, especially when it came to draft time, because he knew every coach, every GM in both leagues, and he took good care of me. But when I got there, it was really cool to start a program. I take a lot of pride in being a Bonnie and in going to St. Bonaventure. And, people when I was there my freshman year were probably sick of me because I told them I was going to play pro lacrosse, and not a lot of people believed me. Fast forward 4 years later, I got drafted into the PLL, and I'm sure you saw the draft video. I think it's one of the more electric draft videos I've seen in a long time. And there was a lot of emotion for me, just, thinking about how, I didn't think I was going to get drafted that night to, hey, I didn't get recruited to, being the first goalie taken off the board, and all that stuff kind of come together. And, I might have had a couple of alcoholic beverages to calm my nerves that night. So when I got drafted, you don't really see it off the camera, but I was I had some tears of joy. I felt, it meant the world to me that, Coach Bates, Coach Cav, and Coach Resch, thought the world of me to draft me in the second round. And I think that pick might have paid off pretty well for them the past couple of years. So I'm extremely happy that worked. And being a Bonnie, I wouldn't be here without my experiences there. And some games getting peppered with a lot of shots and learning how to face adversity there. So it's been pretty unique.
And you talked about, when you got on campus, you said, hey, I'm going to go play pro lacrosse. I'm assuming you made that decision earlier in your high school career, being around Brody and all those guys. And did you ever think, though, that you'd play in both leagues?
Yeah. Yes and no. I always thought I would get drafted into the NLL, as most Canadian, players do. And I thought there would be a chance early on, before the PLL was about, that I would be in the MLL. But I never really thought about PLL until my junior year. Now, I would have liked to have done it, but it wasn't really fully on my radar screen until after that COVID year, because we got an extra year of eligibility. And for me, and we were being smart, you can kind of see the writing on the wall. A lot of big name guys come from big name schools are getting drafted to PLL. And at the time, there wasn't many guys getting drafted from mid-major D2, D3 schools at the time of the draft, right? So, one of the reasons why I have so much respect for Coach Mearns was he could have told me, hey, you know what? I want you to stay here for your extra year, but I'll shop you to some other schools and I'll go do whatever I can, because you need to go play at another school if you want to go play in the PLL. So my entire junior year, he had talked to a bunch of coaches, and I'd taken some visits. I visited Duke, and I spoke with Gary, and Denver reached out, Ohio State reached out, a couple other schools reached out as well. But we were looking at it from how we could level up and be able to go to the PLL draft. And I felt for myself, after I had a junior year, I thought I played pretty well my junior year. It was still COVID. Everything was kind of revamping about it. I got to my senior year, and same thing. Hey, like, now I'm going on visits, doing that stuff. And but at the end of the day, you guys, simplify the game and just make sure you're stopping the ball and clearing it. So I made sure that I focused in on that stuff. And at about midway point of the year, I was like, you know what, Mearnsy, I don't think I really need, to level up and go to another school. And he was like, yeah, I need to actually have a meeting with you in my office. I got some coaches calling me and asking me, are you going to be in the draft? Are you going to go back to school next year? And I said, listen, if they're going to draft me, I'll be there at camp no matter what. And, he said that to them, and I eventually declared, and it was pretty cool to see, being I don't think many guys, like, it felt really cool, because for a mid-major school at the time, like, to have that much attention on you, I felt like I was the man. I'm sure people were annoyed with me at school, but it would be like every week, it would be like an article about this, or like a defensive player of the week or something like that. And it was pretty cool to see that come together. And I felt like that our team had a lot of success that year. And we didn't really get to where we wanted to go. We had some injuries down the stretch, but once that year ended up, there's no doubt in my mind, I thought for sure I was going to get drafted, but it was just a matter of where to who.
Yeah, and you get drafted to the Archers. Talk about that process. You've been in the league now for a couple years, handful of years. Just talk about this Archers team and what fans can expect when they come see him this weekend. Yeah,
I think it's crazy to think that this is about to be my 5th year in the league. I feel like I'm no longer. I personally still think I'm like a first or second year rookie guy. But if I look around the room, they're going to probably start thinking I'm a veteran guy now, since I've been around it for so long. But When I first got drafted in the league, it was pretty eye-opening. I got a text from Tom Schreiber, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool. That's Captain America. That's my teammate. That's my captain now." And my first year was a lot of learning experiences for me because technically I was pretty young. A lot of kids go to school later. They take an extra year in high school, and then when I left because I didn't do a fifth year, it was the group that was like the 2017 graduating class from high school. So I was in theory the youngest guy in the league by 2 years at minimum. So I had to grow up a little bit off the field, and there was a lot of not growing pains, but hey, you're a rookie. You need to be respectful of clean up after yourself. You do a lot of things. And I was a backup, and that was a little different. I wasn't used to that, so it was hard for me to kind of figure that out. And getting to where I am now, a couple of championships later, I felt like the fourth year we had was an interesting year last year, just because we had such high expectations about going on a three-peat, and boy, did we not meet those expectations. And it's funny to look back at it now. We had a lot of guys battling through a lot of injuries just to try to be able to get there. Myself included. I hurt my ankle week one, and I didn't really feel like I got back to close to being 100% until after the All-Star game. But just being able to get there and have guys get healthy for us was very important. And you know what? Sometimes the chips don't fall into place. We played a lot of lacrosse in those championship runs, but I feel like there's a new jolt of energy in our locker room this year heading into a new season, especially after missing the playoffs last year. I think this group's really poised and excited. I had a little bit of FOMO not being at training camp last week, just seeing all the boys. It's weird the season started earlier in the NLL, but I'm happy that we have a really good team, and it's good to see all the boys back together because the offseason can be pretty long when you don't make the playoffs and don't go on a run.
Absolutely. And you talked about, the being an NLL goalie for the Swarm. You actually won't be in Salt Lake this first time, but I think you'll definitely be there when the PLO comes back on Labor Day for the playoffs, and we're excited for that. Couple of quick questions for you. What's the big difference? Again, in Utah there isn't a ton of box lacrosse. That's changing as more and more influences come in. But what's the biggest difference between being a box goalie and a field goalie?
Well, the ball doesn't hurt as much when you get hit with the box. You got a lot of pads on it, but I think that for me, the way you approach it and play your angles is huge. I think you go from having your hands in front of your face to make saves, and then having your body as a second resort to, hey, I'm just using my body now. I think those two things kind of separate the most. But I think the way you approach the game is still the same, right? Your job doesn't change. You just wear a bit bigger pads or less pads, depending on how you look at it. And I might be biased here. I would love to see a box team in Utah with the field team and try and create something where you can have guys on both teams. And I think it would be really good for the lacrosse community here. And I think that, with the success that the hockey teams had, building off that for lacrosse, hockey and lacrosse go hand in hand, whether it be box or field, it doesn't matter, right? And a lot of guys who actually play in the NHL played high level lacrosse growing up, and vice versa. If there's a couple of guys that play high level lacrosse, they might have played some high level hockey, but they just didn't get drafted out of, when they're younger.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see. And you've spent some time here in Utah. Going to Mammoth games. We saw those on Instagram. You spent some time at some local high schools and in youth programs here. What's the biggest thing that kind of surprised you about coming to Utah and spending some time here?
Just the reception I've gotten here. I can remember vividly going to the home opener this year, and I was walking around. It was my first ever time going to a Mammoth game, and it's a Mammoth home opener, so you think people are excited for that. I had people pull me aside and ask if they take photos of me because they knew me from the Archers. So that was my first real taste of damn, this is pretty cool. You're treated like a pro here, and obviously being able to go to a high school lacrosse game today, I felt like I was the man. I'm not gonna lie to you. People put a camera in my face, ask me to take photos of them, sign autographs. That stuff's pretty cool. And when you get to do that in a state like Utah, I think it goes a long way. Those people, they pay good money to go watch you play. And they're very passionate and they care a lot. And I think the sport of lacrosse is growing tremendously here. And when you have the access to a pro lacrosse player like that, I think more kids are going to strive to do that the same way I did. So to be able to do that and do a school program today was pretty cool. I got a really warm welcome there, and it was good to see the young kids have fun. Even the ones that didn't even know what lacrosse were loving it, and it was pretty cool to see that today.
Absolutely. Real quick before I let you go, what's your favorite lacrosse memory? I'm sure you've got a zillion, but what's something that stands out to you?
Oh, that's a really good question because there's obviously the two championships and the finals MVPs that go a long way, but um, I still think my best one's yet to come. I really would love to have an Olympic gold medal around my neck. But I think to this moment right now, I'm gonna have to go with when I was drafted into both the NLL and the PLL because I think for my parents it was something that meant a lot to them. They made a lot of sacrifices to get me to where I am today, whether it be driving me to practices or putting a lot of money out for my lacrosse. And um, for them to see their son have the ultimate reward of fulfilling his dream, I guess, in a sense, right? That was something that was really unique to them, and I just felt like it was really cool to have that moment and to tell them that, hey, I'm a professional lacrosse player now, and that's been probably one of my highlights in my career.
That's awesome. You mentioned Olympic gold medal. I got my Olympic tickets the other day actually for that first day of lacrosse. So I'm super jazzed for that. It's going to be an awesome time. What's been your favorite place to play lacrosse, whether indoor, outdoor, wherever?
I mean, might be biased, but like I love playing in Utah. I think it's the best when you every year we play the Outlaws and they always boo Brennan. I think it's hilarious when it happens, and I think the venue's awesome. I think just the way that the fans are and they interact with you and how passionate they are. Like I've just grown to love it, and for me being a hometown player, I guess for that team, it's a pretty nice advantage to have. But I've played in some pretty hostile environments in the NLL with 19,000 fans telling me that I stink. So those ones are sometimes.
And then last question for you before I let you go. You've been to Utah now, handful, dozen times, in the process of moving here. What's been your favorite place to eat so far in Utah?
Oh, other than my girlfriend's cooking, because she's a pretty good chef, like there's an Italian restaurant downtown. I can't remember the name of it right now. Let me look it up. Give me a second.
Sure.
It's one of my best spots. I like to go to a lot. I've gone there once or twice. It's been so good. And it's got like a sub place beside it. Oh, it's Mateo. Mateo's downtown Salt Lake City. It's my favorite place in Salt Lake so far.
I love it. That place is legit.
It's the best.
There's a bunch of different Italian places downtown, so I couldn't help you out, but yeah, definitely worth your time going for sure.
100%.
Brett,
actually, I lied to you. I lied to you. That's my favorite one downtown, but I do gotta give a shout out to my good buddy TJ Consiglio. He runs the Kita Pendry in Park City. That's probably the best food I've had. It's a Japanese steakhouse out there. Funny story, I met him at the Mammoth game, and it was before my girlfriend and I started dating. So all our friends came up to me and were like, "Oh my God, are you so and so?" And he was just happened to sit beside me. And he was like, "Hey man, if you don't mind me asking, who are you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a nobody." And then we started talking. He's like, "Oh yeah, I played lacrosse." And I was like, "No way, like I pray for the Utah Archers, like this is type of deal." He's like, "Oh, I went to high school with CJ Costabile and his brother. He's from Connecticut." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." He's like, "Yeah, you got to come by my restaurant." And went by, and it was probably one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, I love it, and it just furthers the whole. When you're in the Utah lacrosse community, it's a tight knit community, and everyone knows everyone, and that's
I know exactly of it, exactly it, and a lot of those people are well connected and well respected at a lot of different places, and it always helps when you need a favor here and there from someone.
Absolutely. It's good stuff. I called in a favor from one of my friends to get you on the podcast, and I appreciate it for sure. Brett, I want to thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it. We'll be cheering for the Archers the entire season. Obviously, we're excited to see where you end up with the Swarm, but also wish you get back to the team as soon as possible as well. It's that tricky, weird thing where I know we want you to succeed, but also don't. It's weird.
I know. I was getting the same pressure from my girlfriend and her friends about playing in the home opener. So yeah, I get it completely. So I'm looking forward to obviously getting back here and playing some field lacrosse soon.
Awesome. Thanks again, and best of luck this season.
Appreciate it, Tim. Thank you.